Why reassurance never really solves it. There is a mistake the mind makes when uncertainty becomes too uncomfortable. It starts looking for reassurance, not clarity, not understanding. Reassurance, something that says, it's okay, you're fine, nothing is wrong, you don't need to worry. For a moment, this helps. Pressure drops, the body softens, the mind becomes quieter. And because the relief is real, the reassurance feels effective. But this is where the mistake begins. Relief is not resolution. The uncertainty has not actually changed. The structure underneath has not been understood. Only the pressure was lowered. This is why reassurance works quickly and fails repeatedly. It soothes the system without changing what keeps destabilizing it. The mind does not notice this at first. It only notices that the discomfort decreased. So it learns something dangerous. When I feel uncertain, I need reassurance. That learning matters because now uncertainty is no longer met directly. It is redirected toward confirmation, toward agreement, toward soothing, toward something outside that can temporarily reduce pressure. This can look harmless, a question, a message, a need for someone to repeat what you already heard. But the function is always the same. The mind is not seeking truth. It is seeking enough comfort to stop feeling open. And because that comfort works for a short time, it becomes convincing, not as understanding, as habit.
What makes reassurance so persuasive is that it feels like care. Someone responds, someone confirms, someone gives you a structure to hold. And in that moment, the mind settles. The uncertainty is still there, but it is briefly covered by agreement. This is why reassurance can feel deeper than it really is. It does not only reduce tension, it creates the impression that something true has been established. But very often, nothing has been established, only repeated. The same answer, the same comfort, the same temporary reduction in pressure. And because the answer sounds familiar, the system trusts it. Not because it resolved the question, because it reduced the feeling of not knowing. This is the pattern. The mind stops asking what is actually happening and starts asking what will make this uncertainty feel smaller right now. That shift changes everything, because once reassurance becomes the goal, understanding becomes secondary. The question is no longer explored. It is managed. You do not stay with the instability. You move away from it through confirmation. That is why reassurance often has to be repeated. If it had truly resolved something, it would not need to return so quickly. But what returns is exactly what was never met. The same doubt, the same fear, the same open loop. And each return strengthens the association. Uncertainty appears. Reassurance is sought. Pressure drops. Then the cycle begins again. This is not because the mind is weak. It is because reassurance teaches dependence when it is used instead of direct contact. And the more often the system learns to calm through confirmation, the less able it becomes to remain with uncertainty on its own.
This is why reassurance never really solves it. It can calm the surface, but it does not change your relationship with uncertainty itself. And that relationship is the real issue. As long as uncertainty is treated like a problem that must be silenced quickly, the mind will keep searching for relief instead of capacity. Capacity to stay. Capacity to not know yet. Capacity to feel the pressure without immediately trying to remove it. That capacity is what reassurance delays. Because every time the system escapes uncertainty through confirmation, it learns less about what uncertainty actually is. Not danger, not collapse, not proof that something is wrong. Only openness without immediate structure. But openness feels threatening to a mind that wants conclusion. So reassurance becomes a shortcut, a way to replace inner steadiness with borrowed certainty. And borrowed certainty always fades. That is why the same question returns, not because the answer was bad, because the answer was used as medication,
not understanding. This is the distinction. Reassurance says, relax, you're safe. Understanding asks, what exactly in this uncertainty feels impossible to remain with? That second movement goes deeper. It does not only lower pressure, it reveals structure. The structure of fear, the structure of dependence, the structure of the mind trying to close what still feels open. Once that becomes visible, something begins to change. You may still want reassurance, but now the wanting itself can be observed. The reaching outward, the need for agreement, the hope that someone else can give final quiet to what still feels unresolved. And when that movement is seen clearly, it loses some of its authority. Not because the uncertainty vanishes, but because you no longer confuse comfort with completion.
What keeps this cycle alive is not only fear, it is mistrust. A quiet mistrust in your ability to remain with something unresolved without immediately losing stability. The mind does not believe you can stay open and still remain intact. So it reaches towards certainty, toward agreement, towards someone else's calm. This reaching can feel small. A message, a question, a need to hear the same reassurance one more time. But the repetition matters, because repetition reveals function. If reassurance had truly settled what was active underneath, it would not need to be asked for again in slightly different forms. But often, the form changes, while the structure stays the same. A new question, the same instability. A new reassurance, the same return of pressure. This is why reassurance can slowly become addictive. Not because it feels amazing, because it interrupts discomfort fast enough to become preferred. And what is preferred repeatedly becomes part of the system. Now uncertainty does not lead to observation. It leads to seeking. Seeking someone to reduce what you have not yet learned to remain with yourself. That is the hidden cost. The more reassurance is used to manage uncertainty, the less trust develops in your own capacity to stay with it directly. So the question changes. Not how do I get better reassurance, but what am I assuming will happen if I do not get it? That question opens the structure, because underneath reassurance there is often a prediction that uncertainty will grow, that discomfort will become too much, that without confirmation, something will collapse. And once that prediction is seen, the cycle becomes clearer. You are not only asking for reassurance, you are trying to prevent an inner catastrophe that has not actually happened. This is where the pattern begins to loosen. Not when uncertainty disappears, but when the need for reassurance is no longer treated as proof that reassurance is needed. The urge can still appear, the reaching, the wanting, the impulse to ask, to check, to hear it again. But now, something else is visible. You begin to notice that the relief you want is not the same thing as the truth you need. And that distinction changes the whole movement. You do not have to force yourself to be certain. You do not have to pretend the uncertainty feels easy. You only have to stop assuming that borrowed calm is the same thing as inner stability. Because inner stability is built differently. Not through repeated confirmation, through remaining present when nothing has been confirmed yet, through learning that uncertainty can be felt without immediately becoming an emergency. That is the real shift. Not the absence of doubt. The end of automatically treating doubt like something that must be removed from the outside. The mind may still want reassurance, but now the wanting itself becomes part of what is observed. A movement, a reflex, a learned path away from openness. And once that path is seen, it loses some of its force. Not all at once, but enough. Enough for the question not to be asked immediately. Enough for the pressure not to become urgent so quickly. Enough for uncertainty to remain open for one moment longer without being covered by confirmation. That is where trust begins. Not trust in the answer. Trust in your capacity to remain with the question without collapsing into the need for someone else to close it for you.
This is inner cognition.